Good morning, everybody. We'll wait for some more people to get in here and we'll get started here in maybe like 3 or 4 minutes. Hello, everybody who's just joining us. I'm going to wait just another minute or two here and let more people get in here, and then we'll get started. All right, everybody, we're going to go ahead and get started here. Let in the last few people here. My name is Chris Wyants. I am the Education Manager for Illinois Ag in the Classroom, and today we are going to talk about sustainability in agriculture and some possible classroom connections that we can make to sustainability. So I'm excited to talk to you about that. So I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen here. Just a second here. Okay. All right. So today we're going to talk, like I said, about sustainability. So I'll give you kind of an outline for what that's going to look like. We're going to start by talking about just the concept of sustainable and what that means to us a little bit. And I am going to try to make this a little bit interactive today. And so I'm going to ask you to do some stuff in the chat feature. So kind of mentally prepare for that. I'm going to ask you guys to chime in a little bit there. So we'll talk about the concept of sustainable. We're going to talk a little bit about a well-known analogy for sustainability in agriculture, the three-legged stool. So we'll work through that metaphor there. I have a few sustainability stories from farms, including my own farm. So I'll talk a little bit about that. And then the bulk of our time here today is going to be spent on some lessons. So I'm going to give you 5 or 6 lessons that all deal with sustainability and give you some ideas on how you can start to connect these things with your students. And then we'll end with some book recommendations and some other resources that you can get from Ag in the Classroom. I will remind you too, in the email that I send out each week, there's links to our surveys. If you do that survey, we will, that reflection, we will send you a certificate of completion. And then we also are randomly drawing 3 names to get prizes. This week, we've got some conservation books that we're going to give to you for the 3 lucky winners there. So when this is done today, while you're still thinking about it, take a few minutes, fill out that reflection, and we'll get you that stuff sent to you. All right, so let's dive right in here talking a little bit about sustainability. So I'm going to start off right off the bat asking you guys to participate here a little bit if you're willing to. So using the chat feature, I want you to write a sentence, give us a thought about what you think sustainable means. So for now, think outside of agriculture. Just think in general, what does that term sustainable mean to you? So I'll give you a minute to jot down your thoughts there. Secret is there's no right answer. So anything goes, but I want to get an idea of what people associate with that word sustainable. All right, some good thoughts here. A lot of people saying ability to last over a period of time, taking care of our resources, consistently remain similar. Okay, good. All right, I'll give it just a second longer to chime in there if you'd like to. It's like a lot of similarities there. All right, so lots of stuff there about being able to continue over time, to be able to sustain itself, to be consistent over time. So a lot of good thoughts there. Let's talk specifically about sustainability in agriculture. And so in the 1990 Farm Bill, there was actually, they defined sustainable agriculture. And so I just copied this directly from that Farm Bill. And so you see those bullet points there. And so according to this Farm Bill, this is what sustainable agriculture means. So it's an ability to satisfy human food and fiber needs. It enhances environmental quality and the natural resource base upon which the ag economy depends on. It makes the most efficient use of non-renewable resources. and on-farm resources, and integrates where appropriate natural biological controls and cycles. It sustains the economic viability of farm operations and enhances the quality of life for farmers and society as a whole. The thing that I think is important with this is up here, it says this is a site-specific application. And that's something I'll keep coming back to today, because I think sustainability is such a loaded term for so many of us that when any discussion we have with ag sustainability, we really need to think about how diverse agriculture is and how even farms growing similar products have very different contexts. And so it's very much dependent on contextual basis and the site-specific application. And so we'll touch a little bit on that when we talk about some of these sustainability stories here today, but it's important to keep that in mind, that what's sustainable for one farm is not necessarily sustainable for another farm, even though they're doing similar things. All right. Move ahead here if my computer will let me. Okay, so I want to go ahead to this three-legged stool analogy. Now, I taught high school English for 14 years, and so metaphor is a big thing that I used to teach, and so we're going to dive back into that here a little bit. So before I tell you what this analogy means, I'm going to ask you again to chime in on that chat feature. So if you can imagine a stool with three legs, and so if you imagine the seat of that stool is sustainable agriculture. And so the three legs of the stool are the three dimensions that are needed for a high quality life to create sustainable agriculture. So if you had to guess, again, lots of right answers here. If you had to guess, what would you say those three legs represent on that stool of sustainable agriculture? Take a minute and chime in there on the chat bar. What do you think the three legs of the stool represent for ag sustainability? This is very similar to teaching high school, where you like pose a question and then you sit in silence for a while and wait for somebody to chime in. It's even worse on Zoom when you have like zero feedback from people. So it makes it even more awkward. All right, we got some answers coming in here. Animal, crops, people, marketability, supporting resources, water conservation, environment, economy, and people. All right, soil health, yep. All right, some good stuff there. Land stewardship, marketing. All right, yeah, lots of good thoughts there. So I'll start sharing here again. So the metaphor is this. So it's the idea of economy, environment, and community or society. You can kind of think of those as the same thing. So farms need to be economically viable, right? Farmers need to make enough money to support themselves. We need to maintain and as much as we can improve the environment over time. And then we need to be an asset to society, to our communities as well. Now, like with most metaphors, this stool analogy is a really good way to think about how these things prop up this idea of sustainable agriculture, but it's a little bit limited because they're not completely separate and equal things necessarily, right? What might be more economically viable might be a little bit worse for the environment, or what's better for the environment might make it so that it's impossible to actually make any money, right? Or what's better for society, it could possibly hurt the environment, right? So you can think about it all these different ways. And so these things are overlapping and they're all connected in ways that this stool doesn't necessarily show us. So this model's maybe a little bit better way to think about it. It's the same kind of concept, but it kind of demonstrates this idea that these things are intertwined in ways that we don't necessarily even fully understand. And we have to think about all of them at the same time and not necessarily individually. So the big thing here is this idea that for any farm, sustainability is a journey, not a destination, right? This is a moving target and something that farmers are constantly thinking about and trying to improve on to improve their operations and improve their sustainability. So it's certainly not a static thing. It changes over time, and again, changes in context depending on what farm it is. All right, so that's the three-legged stool analogy, a pretty useful way to kind of start thinking about these concepts of sustainability. All right, we're gonna go, next I wanna talk a little bit about my farm, and then I'm gonna contrast that with a few short videos of other farms that are probably what you consider more, I guess, more traditional farms in the state of Illinois. And so the reason I wanna do this is I wanna show a contrast of what I think about for sustainability at my small farm is potentially very different than what other farmers think about. So I thought this would be a good way to kind of show that. I did film a bunch of video yesterday and was trying to get it all edited together and had nonstop internet and computer issues yesterday. And so I went out this morning and took some pictures, and I'm just going to talk to you about basically what I was going to talk about in my video, but unfortunately that didn't happen here for this morning. Okay, so I'll tell you a little bit about my farm. So this is our 6th season. My wife and I run it, and it's actually my wife's full-time job, and then I help, whenever I can, basically. So I'm part-time help on the farm. So we're what you'd probably call a micro farm. So we're teeny tiny. We're a ½ acre, and we grow mostly cut flowers and leafy green vegetables, and market pretty much all of that locally here. So to give you an idea of where we stack up as far as averages in Illinois. So in Illinois, the average farm size is 375 acres on average. Again, we're a ½ acre, so we're teeny tiny. Likewise, if you think, you can see in the picture, there's all this corn planted around us. We're completely surrounded by corn and soybean fields. So depending on the year and who you talk to and those kind of things, these are kind of vague numbers here, but per acre gross on a corn or soybean farm, you're looking at grossing about $600 to $7 per acre. All right, now obviously I'm growing on a ½ acre. If I gross that amount, there would be no point, right? There's no reason I would continue doing what I'm doing for that. So our farm is very different financially with that regards to what we can make per acre, right? It's a very, very different operation. So we're looking at, on a ½ acre, we're doing 70 to 80 times that in gross on half the space. So the reason I point this out is context is important, right? What's sustainable for me is very, very different than what's sustainable for all these people around me farming corn and soybeans on hundreds of acres. So we need to think about sustainability in very different ways. All right, so let me talk a little bit more specifically about some of the things that we do on our farm for sustainability. So one of the things we do is we try to be we're not no-till, but we try to be as low-till as we can to try to preserve soil health and disrupt our soil as little as possible. So we grow on what I call a semi-permanent raised bed system. And so this is my tractor. Doesn't look like a tractor. This is a two-wheel tractor. And these are really popular in small farms like ours because all the implements are sized for this bed system. And so everything that you can buy to attach to this is a 30-inch wide implement. So this is my tiller right here. This is called a harrow plow. I'll talk about that in a little bit. So everything we have is made to go over these 30-inch beds. And so the system works because the tools are built specifically for the size beds that we're using. So we mound the soil, and so we have these semi-permanent raised beds. We have to kind of remound them every few years, but you can see they're kind of raised up here. And so part of the reason we do that is that it sheds water, so we really don't have any kind of flooding issues because it sheds water into the pathways here, and we're actually on a slight hill facing the south here, so water kind of runs down the pathways also, and we don't have really issues with flooding in our fields. Another advantage of this bed system is that we have defined pathways, and so we only walk on the pathways. And this tractor here, the handles swivel, and so I can walk in the pathway while the tractor is running down the bed, doing mowing or tilling or whatever I need it to do. And so along with that, we only add soil amendments and fertilizers and things like that directly to our beds where our plants are going to be, and we're not wasting any of that on our pathways where we're not trying to grow so intensively. And so trying to minimize our inputs, we know we need these inputs, right? We have to have these things to grow crops effectively, but trying to minimize those as much as we can and put them where they're actually needed. Other thing we do for soil health sustainability, so anybody who gardens, most people have a rototiller, right? That it inverts the soil and really destroys a lot of soil structure in the process of breaking that up to allow you to plant. So we use what's called a harrow plow that actually stirs the soil sideways. And so it's much less disruptive. It doesn't bring up a bunch of weed seeds. And then I can select how deep I want it to till. And so I only ever till about 1.5 inches to 2 inches down because that's all I need to till in order to plant all these transplants. We start almost everything we grow from seed. We start it in our basement, we move it out to one of our unheated hoop houses, and then plant it in the ground. And so we just need to be able to get those into the ground. And so I only till as deep as I need to be able to do that. So again, thinking about ways where we need to do something, we need to till, right? We need to do something that is going to disrupt that soil in some way to be able to farm on it. But we're going to try to do it in a way that's as responsible as possible and sustainable as possible. I'll move on here to my soil. This is my soil test from last year. So this is something that all farmers do to try to get an idea of where their soils are at, what they need to add, make sure they're not adding too much of something, not enough of something. So they want to try to maximize the health of that soil to allow plants to grow well. So to give you an example of kind of some of the decisions you have to make. So this is a soil sample that I had done in one of my hoop houses last year. So you can see like my organic matter is off the charts here. We're doing some good stuff there. Even though we plant multiple crops every single year for 5 years prior to this, we were still doing really well with organic matter. And really, even if you look at right here, I needed to add some manganese, but you know, it was almost like my hoop house is 16 foot by 30 foot. And so to put on 0.04 pounds of manganese was just about impossible to be able to measure that out for that small space. The thing that I want to point out though is the sodium level. And this is something that, again, small growers that use hoop houses like we do, this is a problem that needs to be addressed. So my soil tests for my outdoor fields, which are, 50 foot away from this hoop house, the sodium level I think was about 64 parts per million. And after 5 years being covered up with plastic, sodium level kept climbing and climbing and climbing. And so far, we're not seeing any issues with this, but eventually it could potentially start harming the plants that we're trying to grow in there. The reason the salt level is climbing is because we have covered the soil. So the only rain that it gets is through our irrigation system. And so outside, it rains, it flushes things out of the soil. And so that salt doesn't just sit there and collect. When you cover up the soil and now we're filling it with well water every time we irrigate, we're raising that sodium level and there's nowhere for it to go. There's no way for it to get out of there. So again, example of, when we think about sustainability on our farm, this year we've decided we're gonna stop growing in that hoop house and we're gonna take the plastic off the top. We need to change the plastic anyway. And so we're gonna leave the plastic off for the rest of the year and allow it to rain. If it ever rains here again, I don't think we've had rain in like 2 months now, but if it ever rains again, we will start flushing that salt out of there. And so hopefully make that soil healthier. When we recover that hoop next year, we'll be able to have a little bit better quality soil in there and be able to grow things better for another 5 or 6 years until we might have to do it again. So the reason I bring that example up is when you think about sustainability, economically, that does not make sense for us, right? A hoop house is one of our most important and most expensive places on our farm to grow, but for the long term, it maybe makes more sense for us to make less money this year on it to improve the soil health, and then that will allow us to be more sustainable in the long term. So that's why these issues of sustainability are so complex, because not only do they change depending on the farm, but depending on exactly what your end goal is, they're never easy decisions as you think about what's more sustainable than this other thing. We also think a lot about water conservation. Around here where I'm at in central Illinois, we don't see a whole lot of people irrigating their fields for vegetable production, though typically you pretty much have to. That's a pretty important thing to do. So what we do to try to conserve water as much as we can is we use a drip irrigation system. And so the idea is that this is our main water line coming from our hydrant, and then every bed, you can see we've spaced our planting holes out so that we have a drip line that runs between each row. And there's a teeny tiny little hole in it every 4 inches. And so little droplets of water come out and slowly water right where the plants need it, right at the root level. So, with overhead irrigation, there's a potential to have a lot of evaporation. We've tried to get around that, not only to conserve water, but also we live in a 125-year-old farmhouse with a well that's probably just as old. And so we're trying to conserve our resources at our homestead also, and not overtax our well any more than we have to. While I'm looking at this picture here, I'll talk to you too about this landscape fabric that we use. That maybe looks kind of odd. Let me go up to the next slide. There might be a better picture of it here. Actually not. Okay, I'll go back. So this is another, you think about sustainability. So our farm, as sustainable as we try to be, we're like many small farms, we're pretty reliant on using plastic, and that's just part of what you need to do for small scale farming. And so we try to, again, be as sustainable with that as we can. And so we use this stuff called landscape fabric, which is woven plastic, and it's permeable. So air can kind of move through it, water can get through it, but it blocks weeds. So when we started, we realized early on we didn't want to spend our entire lives weeding, because that was surely not sustainable for my back by any means. So we use this landscape fabric. And so we actually have a super sophisticated template that we made using cardboard and aluminum foil. It's very high end. And we lay it down on the fabric, and then we use a little propane torch and burn holes in this pattern. So all of our plants, all of our beds are spaced the exact same. And we're able to attach that with, we have 8-inch long sod staples that we pin that down with at the beginning of each season to plant into. And you can see there's some weeds creeping up on the edges here, and in holes that didn't get planted into. And so it doesn't eliminate weeding, but when we think about for our sustainability, for our labor, we don't want to spend a lot of time doing tasks that don't actually turn into money for our farm, right? Weeding is certainly not one of them. And so this allows us to protect that soil. It actually does help reduce erosion and things, because the water goes through it somewhat, but also kind of slides off of it, and then certainly helps keep us from weeding 16 hours a day. Another thing a lot of small growers do, again, using plastic, is hoop houses, unheated hoop houses. We use these to create microclimates for some of our crops. So this is our newer hoop house. These are dahlias that we planted a couple weeks ago, and we're just starting to get those trellised up. You can see again in here, we're using drip tape to irrigate in our hoop house as well. All right. And the last kind of thing I'll touch on with this is, so our farm is about 70% of our income comes from doing wedding flowers. So my wife is what you'd call a farmer florist. So this year, obviously, that's been a hot mess, right? We haven't done hardly anything as far as weddings go this year. And so for us, being able to stay small and be able to pivot easily has been really important to our sustainability. Just as a business, we have to be able to not be in one path. We need to be in multiple different markets. And so luckily, we have relationships with grocery stores and restaurants, and we have what's called a CSA, a community supported agriculture, where we sell directly to people. They pay up front and then pick it up every week on the farm. So we had a lot of different ways to sell our things that were in place that we were able to kind of turn to, again, to help our economic sustainability in some of these kind of trying times. The only other element of sustainability that on that three-legged stool analogy that I didn't touch on was this idea of community. And so for us, what that looks like is trying to be active in our community, trying to invite people to the farm. We host classes and trying to get people to come out and learn more about the kind of farming that we do and kind of appreciate that farming lifestyle to some extent. And so that's how we try to stay active in the community and bring that part to our sustainability discussion. All right, so that's my farm. Again, I don't want you to think that is very similar to the majority of farms in Illinois, because we are very different. But I'm going to show you a couple short videos here about some maybe farms that you're maybe more used to hearing more about. And hopefully you'll kind of see some similar discussions happening with those operations. Even though they're very, very different, they're still thinking about things like we are, but just in a different way. All right, so let me, and if you have questions, please feel free to put those in the chat box. I'll try to check in on those in here in a little bit. But for now, I want to show you this video. So I've got 3 videos. They're all very short. They're about 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes long. And each one touches on a different leg of that 3-legged stool. All right, we're gonna see, I'm gonna make sure that I'm sharing with audio here. All right, here we go. Maybe. All right, give me a second here, guys. All right. We're going to do it this way here, if it'll let me. Oh boy. Well, I don't know why that's not working, but let me try one more thing here. All right, I'm going to skip those for now. I'll make sure those are available to you, but I'll kind of circle back to that and see if I can figure out why those aren't working. Okay, so for now, I'm going to skip forward to some lessons on sustainability. So I pre-filmed a couple videos to hopefully those work, and so we'll see if we can get those to work. So I've got 5 lessons here. I also had one of our interns filmed a lesson as well about water conservation too. So let's see if we can get those to work. All right, going to be like that. All right. Okay, give me a second. I'm going to go to our YouTube page here, and I'm going to access those videos. All right, it appears our internet here at the office is less than ideal. Here we go.
Kevin, I think you needed to click on the bottom left. It was the play button on the videos.
Yeah, let me see. It looks like, let me try it again here. Yeah, I think it's gonna, let's see here. Let me see. I think that's not working either. All right, give me a second here, guys. All right, here we go. For some reason, our internet here is not working very well. So give me a second. I'm gonna share this. All right. All right, here's our first one, throw and grow.
Today, I'm going to show you how to make what we call a throw and grow. So basically what this is a bunch of seeds that we're going to be able to plant in a way to attract pollinators. One of the most important things that we can do for the environment is to attract pollinators to allow them to prosper. In order to do that well, we need to attract both native and non-native pollinators. So honeybees get a lot of attention, as they should. They're a really important pollinator, but they're actually not native to this country, and certainly not to Illinois. And so while honeybees are important, there's also a lot of native pollinators as well that we want to try to establish habitat for. The key to doing that is to have things that can sustain these pollinators throughout their entire season. We want to attract them, but also have nectar and pollen that they're able to access throughout the entire growing season. So this is one way that you can get your students to learn more about that and to get them to actively participating in creating more pollinator habitat, whether at your school or in at their own homes or in their communities. So you really just need 3 different ingredients here. We've got some potting soil, we've got some modeling clay. It's just modeling clay that you buy at a craft store or Walmart, any place like that. And then we have some native wildflower seeds. You could use all sorts of different seeds for this. Seeds that are a little bit smaller will work better for this, and you want a variety of seeds as well, again, to have things that are going to grow throughout the entire growing season. So to have your students make this throw and grow, you're just going to take off a little chunk of this modeling clay. You're going to take some wildflower seeds and you're just going to press those into that modeling clay. So it's got a bunch of seeds attached to it, and then we're just going to roll that around inside this potting soil. And the idea is that we're going to make this little ball here. All right, and so this is our throw and grow. So the idea would be we could literally drive down the highway and chuck this out the window into the ditch, and those seeds would have everything that they need to germinate and then to grow. So the clay is going to hold everything together. That potting soil's got some nutrition. It's going to hold some moisture on those seeds and allow them to germinate. So your students could make these in class, and you could plant them in pots if you wanted to, but you don't really need to go to that trouble to make this throw and grow to do that. The idea is that you can toss them anywhere and that they'll be able to grow and create pollinator habitat. Obviously, the best way to do that is in places that don't get mowed frequently, right? So ditches, unmowed pasture areas, or unmowed part of their yard would be the best place for students to take these throw and grows and try to create some pollinator habitat.
All right, so that's our throw and grow. That's a really great way to kind of introduce students to thinking about increasing pollinator habitats. One of the videos that I was going to show you talked a little bit about pollinator habitats as well. And so yeah, we like that lesson. It's a good way to kind of think about not only how do seeds grow, but also how can we improve habitat for pollinators and other insects, creatures, things like that. All right, so I'm going to go to our next lesson, which is called soil slurry. So let me pull that back up. I got to go back through YouTube because for some reason the links in my PowerPoint are not working. All right. So soil slurry is a good way to get students thinking about what makes up soil, what parts are in soil, and kind of testing out to see kind of, how healthy are the soils around us. This is also if you do have the potential to do some kind of soil testing, this could go very well with that, and you get reports similar to the soil test that I showed you earlier from my farm. So this is me doing this soil slurry activity using 3 different soil types, all from places on my farm here.
Any conversation about sustainability in agriculture at some point is going to focus in on soil health. Literally everything that we do in farming is connected to the health of our soils, right? And we have to do everything we can to protect and sustain the health of those soils so that we can continue to grow crops to feed the world. So farmers get soil tests every year so that they can determine what nutrients are in the soil, and depending on what crop they're growing the next year, they will then add amendments into the soil to make sure they can grow the best, most nutritious food that they can on that soil. Today, what we're going to do is to look at the composition of the soil on my farm. And so we're going to do an activity called soil slurry. So what I have here are 3 different soils from my farm. Now, I live in central Illinois, and we have some of the best soil in the entire world. And so we have a really, really good, high-quality black dirt. It's actually pretty hard to find a really clay soil where I live. And so luckily, a few days ago, I was digging some post holes I'm building a new chicken coop, and we had to dig down about 2.5 feet, but we found some clay. And so what I have here is clay soil from, again, about 2.5 feet below where I'm standing now. We have some soil that I took out of one of my garden beds here. I planted spinach in this bed earlier this year. And so I pulled that out and I now have some soil from that bed. And then I also have some compost from my compost pile that we recently flipped. Now our compost is mostly potting soil. We grow something called microgreens, and so we grow them in these trays, and then we harvest them 10 days after we grow them. And so this is a tray of pea shoots that we harvested yesterday. So what we do every week is we don't want that potting soil to go to waste, so we pull it out. This is how much they've grown in 10 days time. So we pull out the soil from these trays, and then we dump it on our compost pile to let everything decompose, and then eventually once it's decomposed, we add it back into our fields here. And so it starts out looking like this. And then this has been sitting for about a year. We just flipped it last week. And so it's mostly potting soil, but also has decaying plant matter, things that we've taken out of our garden and we put on there. It's got some straw, some grass, things like that mixed in it as well. So we're gonna test and see what is in these different types of soil and to see how they shake out here. So we've got them in 3 different jars. You're gonna fill each jar about a quarter full with your soil, and then you're gonna add water till it's about half full. Okay. So we've added our water, and then we're gonna seal these jars up. So I'm just using ball jars, and they make these plastic caps that go over the top of them. So it's pretty easy to seal them up tight. You could also reuse any kind of glass jars, pickle jars, things like that. Mayonnaise jars would work fine. Oh, you know what? I forgot. We gotta put a little dish soap in here. So you need about a teaspoon of dish soap in each one. I'm not really measuring that. I'm just gonna kind of guess. So once I get the dish soap in each of these jars, I'm gonna shake each of them for about 3 minutes to really fully break any clods that are in there and to fully incorporate that water and that soap into that soil. At that point, I'm gonna let them sit for a few minutes and let's see what layers start to separate out in each of these samples. Okay, so I've made my soil slurries here. So you can tell they look very different already. So this is our soil just from one of our planting beds. This is the clay from a few feet down. And then this is the mostly peat moss-based compost from our compost pile. So I'm gonna let these sit here for about 5 minutes, and then I'm gonna come back and start to get an idea of if they're separating into the different layers of the different types of soil particles. So I'll be back in 5 minutes. Okay, here we are about 5 minutes later, and you can see things are just starting to settle out. We've got just the very, very beginning of kind of seeing some of these layers, but I think we've got a long way to go here. So I'm gonna check back in about a half hour, and then I'm gonna wait another 24 hours to check it again. And we have a worksheet that we use with this. I'll put it up on the screen here. And so this is something you could use with your students to measure these different layers as they start to form, or you can modify it if you want to do some kind of other experiment with it. But the idea is that students are going to track how these soil layers start to form in this soil slurry. Okay, we're a couple days later here, so I'm going to give you my final update on the soil slurry. So I'll start with our compost. This really didn't settle out at all. So it's mostly peat moss. It's kind of floating in the water. So kind of did what I expected it to do. There's not much to separate just because there is so much of that peat moss potting soil there. So that one's kind of a wash here. All right. So this is the soil from our garden bed, and this is the soil from about 2.5, 3 feet down. That looked like it was mostly clay. So I don't know how well you can see this in the video. I'm trying to show you here. There's just the tiniest layer of sand down here. This is mostly all clay right here. And then I believe this stuff just kind of floating on the top here is just a little bit of either silt or organic matter, but mostly clay in here. The one from our garden bed is kind of the reverse of that. So I don't really see much of any sand at all. I think this is all mostly silt. There is the tiniest thin line of clay. I'm not sure how well that shows up. And then I think you can kind of see there's even some stuff floating in the water still. There's a decent amount of organic matter in this soil, which is a good sign. That's what we want for our healthy garden soil. So some very thin layers, but you can see if we mix these two together, we probably have a really big layer of clay and then the silt layer underneath of it on there. So again, an interesting way to test some soils, look at what composes them, and allow your students to kind of do some mathematical and scientific experiments with their soils.
All right, so that's soil slurry. Another kind of variation on that again I intended to do, and I ordered a bunch of Play-Doh and it didn't come in until yesterday afternoon, and so I didn't have time to do it. But you could also take Play-Doh and put in little aluminum pans and layer it, and so you could kind of determine, purple represents clay, the green represents sand, whatever you wanted to do, and layer it in varying different layers. And students can actually use straws, and you do like core samples, so you can put the straw down in it and pull out the core sample of the soil, and you can measure it that way and kind of do different experiments and tests with that, just using Play-Doh as kind of representing that soil as well. So another way you could do that, or you could do that in conjunction with your soil slurry. For mine, the layers, some of them were so small they would have been really hard to measure. If you have a soil that has a greater mix of those different soil particles, then obviously that would be a little bit easier to do that. So. All right, so that is soil slurry. I'm going to go on to our next one. I'm going to ask you guys to get involved a little bit here. So we're going to do something on a different chat feature, something some of you might have used in your classrooms before. I've actually never used it, and so I'm excited to try it. Our education specialist, Stephanie, convinced me yesterday to try this. So if this doesn't go well, I might never take advice from her ever again. I don't know. We'll see here though. Okay, so this is our lesson, Say It Was Soil. And so basically the idea with this lesson is we have a bunch of different quotes from people through all periods of time talking about soil. And they're all really good quotes. This is probably a good lesson for like upper elementary, all the way up to, I could have easily done this with my high school students for sure and had some good discussions with this. So what I'm going to ask you to do is the same thing that we would ask our students to do. And so I've got 6 quotes here, and you can see over here on the left-hand side, I've got it mapped out with whatever your last name, whatever letter your last name starts with. That's the quote that I want you to focus on. So Stephanie should have shared in the chat feature, there is a link to a Padlet page. And I'm going to actually click on that and show you what that looks like real quick. And then I will go back to my PowerPoint. So this is my Padlet page here. And so you can see I've got each quote set up on here, and then there's a spot for you to add a comment. So what I'd like each of you to do, if you're willing, is to go to the quote that matches up with the first letter of your last name, read it, think about it, and then in the comment feature here on this Padlet page, type in your thoughts. Give us, what do you think this quote is saying? How does it relate to today? Maybe there's something that surprises you about who said it or when they said it. But give us some thoughts about your take on that quote. On this Padlet, it's going to say anonymous. So if you want to be anonymous, that's fine. If you want to type your name in with your response, feel free to do that too. You can do either one. So I'm going to temporarily go back to sharing this guy so that you can see which quote you need. I'll give you a second to figure out which quote, and then skip on over to that Padlet site, and we'll look at those comments there. And if you really don't like the quote you got, I guess no one will know the difference if you pick a different one and write on that. So that's okay too, I guess. Okay, the one to beat so far I wish they'd written their name because they need credit for this. It says, I think this quote is pretty groundbreaking. Get it? Yeah, that's a good one.
That was me.
That was you, Hannah? That's awesome. Yeah, well done. I'm glad we hired you. This is Hannah. She's our intern. Well done.
I'm good with the puns.
You need a pay raise. Man, look at you.
Okay, sign me up.
Okay, all right, all right. All right, looks like we got people commenting here still. I'll give you a minute here if you want to play along. So on number 4, that's a nice historical connection there, thinking about when that quote was said after the Dust Bowl. So yeah, that's a great connection. All right, I'll give us just another minute here. I can see some people are still typing and adding comments in here. Oh yeah, good connection somebody made to Stephanie's last class where we watched that video about if we didn't have farming, we wouldn't have the internet. So a good connection there, yeah. Dad always said the smell from the farmland's the smell of money. I like that too, yeah. Good deal. Okay. Well, in the interest of time, I'm not going to go through and read all of these, but I would encourage if you haven't had a chance yet, there's some good thoughts here. This is a great way to get students thinking about soil. I think it's something that we don't often think about enough. It's something that connects us all to each other in ways that we don't even fully understand. And so we really like this Say It With Soil lesson. Hannah, who had the epic pun on her comment, she's been helping us go through and redo our lessons into a new format. And so she's actually redone this lesson, and I'll post the finished version on our blog with the links to the other Zoom links for this session. And we've got, I think there's 30 plus quotes that you can choose from. The way we do it when we go around and present this, we've actually taken the quotes and put them on little laminated strips, and then we pass them out and have people look at them that way. And oftentimes we'll have people partner up and talk about each of their quotes first. So a great way to get students thinking about the soil, and all these quotes deal with, sustaining and helping our soil to improve over time as well. So lots more good quotes there. Some are better for older age groups, some are better for younger age groups. And so there's lots to choose from with that lesson. So we'd encourage you to check that out. Again, I'll have that on the blog site, the beyondthebarndoor.wordpress.com, with all the other links from our session. Cool. Well, thank you for playing along there. All right, I'm going to go to my next lesson here, which is called Watershed. I had my my son help me do this one. Give me a second here. I'll go pull it up from YouTube since my links aren't working. All right, here we go. So that lesson was good for talking about soil conservation and soil health. This lesson has connections to soil, but focuses more on our watershed. So this is a really easy lesson and a really cool visual for our students to kind of better understand how watersheds work.
Now we're going to do an activity called What a Watershed. Even though we live in Illinois, which is relatively flat, especially here in central Illinois where we live, you don't really think too much about watersheds because it's so flat. But even no matter how flat the land is, there's still watershed areas, right? The watershed has to go somewhere. So this lesson is a great opportunity to talk to your students not only about the geography in your area, but also the importance of the ecology of these ecosystems and trying to protect the watershed around us. So to get started, we're going to get a big piece of freezer paper. Okay, so Lincoln's going to take this freezer paper and he's going to crumple it all up into a ball. Keep going, keep going. All right. Perfect. That's great, just like that. All right, so if we start to uncrumple this, you can see, flip it this way, he's made all sorts of indentations. Now, if we were out west in, say, Utah, our watershed may look something more like that, right, with a mountain. Here in Illinois, it's not going to be quite like that, and so we're still going to have some high spots and some low spots here. Okay, so we have our watershed here. Now, we could take our spray bottle and start spraying this, and you can see pretty instantly the water's gonna shed off these high spots and we're gonna find where the low spots are. We're gonna do a little twist on this and think about what goes with the water when water is going down through these watersheds. So I've got a couple just basic things here. Lincoln, you can kind of help me here. So I've got just a brown washable marker, and we're gonna say right here is a construction site where they've created a big dirty mess here. They've got a lot of open soil here at this construction site. And let's say too at the construction site, we'll use a little rice here. And let's say they've got some kind of construction junk that they've left out at their construction site. All right, so we've got that. Maybe over here, got some crushed red pepper flakes. Maybe not the best choice for your classroom, but it's what I had available here. Let's say over here, this is the dog park and nobody's been getting their dogs doo-doo cleaned up, and so dog park's getting kind of messy over there. And let's say right here, we got some sprinkles here. Let's say a guy didn't really read the instructions, put way too much fertilizer on his lawn than it needed, and there's a whole lot of extra fertilizer sitting in that lawn here before it rains. All right, so I'm gonna zoom you in here and we can see, don't eat that, come on. We're gonna see what happens here when it starts raining. Okay, so it's gonna start raining here, so we're gonna use our spray bottle. Oh boy, look at all that dirt. Oh boy. Okay, so stop for a second there. All right, so you can see we're watching it go down here. And a lot of it, from this side anyway, is all collecting down here. So this is a really good visual for your students to see that, you know, what might not seem like a big deal here, when all that gets washed down through the watershed and ends up down here, that looks like a much bigger mess than it started with. All right, so just a couple ideas on things that you can do to show what your watershed looks like and show how important it is that we're thinking about our watersheds and thinking about how we need to make sure that they're on our minds and we're taking care of them.
Yeah.
All right, so that is What a Watershed. And again, another good way to talk a little bit about water conservation as well. I'm getting low on time here, and so I'm gonna go quickly here to this video that Hannah, our intern, made for us, and so we have time to see that here. So give me just a second to share my screen. So this is another water lesson. This would be good for younger groups or upper elementary groups alike here, talking about water conservation.
Hi everybody, today I'm going to be showing you how to do the activity Don't Use It All Up. Now this activity is really awesome because it's going to teach your kids how to conserve water. And so what you're going to need for this activity is first some sponges, and these sponges I've cut up into little pieces, and you're going to want to give each one of your kids a little piece of the sponge. And then I have some masking tape, and I have blue food coloring that is put into 4 cups of water so that students can really see the change in the water level. So the first thing you're going to do is pour your 4 cups of water into a container. And your container is going to represent the earth, and this water, of course, represents all of the fresh water on the earth. Next thing you're going to do is you're going to take your little piece of masking tape and you're going to put it right where the water level comes to. Then once you've started out with your water level, then you're going to have your students brainstorm ways that they use water that day or that week. These could be something like they left the water on when they brushed their teeth, or their family ran the dishwasher every single day this week. Then as they're thinking of these things, they're just going to drop one by one the sponge in the bucket as they list off these things to you. You could also use like a worksheet that comes along with this lesson where students could write down the ways that they use water. And it is going to take just a second for the sponges to soak up the water, but eventually the pieces little by little will soak up more and more water. Then after you've dropped all your sponges into your bucket, have your students brainstorm some ways they can conserve water. This could be like turning off the sink while they brush their teeth, or reusing a towel that maybe they weren't that dirty when they used, or maybe wearing the same jeans another day that week because they really didn't get that dirty when they just came to school. And then have them think of those things as you're taking your sponges out of the bucket. As you can see, I kind of threw in some big sponges, so maybe they have some big ways they use water that really just kind of helped absorb up the water a little bit more. Okay, and you're gonna want to try your hardest not to let the water squeeze out whenever you're taking it out of the earth. Then after you've taken out all your sponges, you are going to take this little piece of tape and you're going to measure the difference between whenever it was filled up and whenever you used up all the water. Then once your students have brainstormed some of the ways that they can conserve water, or like how we can help keep this renewable resource as much intact as we can, then you're going to take your sponges and you're going to squeeze them back into the bowl. I'm going to do this quicker for video purposes, but you could probably have each of your students come back and squeeze a sponge back in if you want to make it more hands-on at the end as well.
Thanks to Hannah for helping us out with that. All right, I know we are getting low on time, so I'm gonna just give you some final resources here before we leave. All right, so we continue to work on other resources to give you for your classroom. And so we continue to have ag mags available about a variety of topics. 2 of them that are relevant to the sustainability things we talked about today are the pollinator and water ag mag. We're actually in the process of rewriting and reprinting both of these this year. And so those should be available later this year and into spring. They are available online and they are all interactive. So they have links that you can click on that go to external things. And so those are available continuously online. I won't worry about clicking on all these, but we've also been working on a number of readers, which are basically like kind of like AgMag Lite. We have a number of new topics of those, including renewable energy, invasive species, cooperatives. We're also working on cover crop one as well. And so those are available on our website now and available to print and share with students as you see fit. I'll also share, if you haven't heard of the Purple Plow Challenge, it's something that the American Farm Bureau Federation or Foundation does, and they have all sorts of different challenges that you can do with your students and win prizes. And the most recent one that's going on this summer is one that's directly tied to sustainability. So that's something to check out too if you're looking for just classroom ideas and also some actual challenges you can do with your students to win prizes. The last thing I'll share with you are some book recommendations that fit along with this idea of sustainability. The Great American Dust Bowl is a graphic novel, probably upper elementary, middle school level. Really interesting look at the devastation of the Dust Bowl brought on, particularly relevant with the, I don't know if you've heard about the Saharan dust cloud that's going across the United States right now. But a very good book to look at. This is what can happen if we aren't having these conversations about sustainability. And a good way to think about and tie in all the different things that farmers around the country are doing to better take care of our resources these days. A couple other good books, Water is Water by Miranda Paul. That's one that we're going to give away as part of our reflection giveaway. And then Handful of Dirt by Raymond Biles, a good one as well. Before I sign off here, I will give you the links on our blog site for those 3 short videos about sustainability. They will take you less than 5 minutes to watch all 3 of them. I would encourage you to check those out. I really wanted you to be able to see how different farms think about sustainability differently, because I think the way that I think about it on my farm is unique to what a corn and soybean farmer would or a hog farmer would. So I would encourage you to look at those and kind of get a broader idea of what sustainability conversations look like for different farms in different contexts. Couple of last things. Thursday, we're going to go visit a hog farm with the Illinois Pork Producers Intern. So join us at 9 a.m. on Thursday. Next week, Kevin is talking about connections with Illinois history and agriculture. So that should be exciting. And then also, final reminder, take a minute when you hang up here and fill out your reflection. We'll send you a certificate of completion. And then you will also enter to win a chance for some books. All right. Thank you so much for joining us today. I appreciate it. I apologize for our technological limitations here, but thanks for joining us. I'm going to hang out for a little bit and answer any questions you have in the chat. Have a good rest of your day. Thank you, everybody.